Yes, sir. And we are live for a little UFC action. UFC 308, Topuria, Holloway. And I got my guy Dan with me to break it all down. Dan, we got a good card, man. Last week wasn't the greatest card when you looked at it, but actually I was entertained by the card. So it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be when I actually sat down and watched the card. So I was pretty happy about that. But this card should be a banger. Like I'm ready for a banger here this weekend. Obviously an early start time, which is why we're doing the show on Friday. Because we got the start time. I think it's 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time start time, and then the pay-per-view I think starts at 2, if I remember correctly. So Dan, how you doing here on this Friday?
I'm doing good. Like you said, this is, up there for one of the best cards of the year, probably the best main event of the year. The co-main is a banger. Like the entire pay-per-view card is great. Good undercard. Obviously much better than last week, which did exceed expectations despite being looking pretty dire on paper, but we still had some fun fights, some funny moments. But yeah, this week is a whole different beast. It's actually it's top quality from top to bottom. So I'm really excited for it.
I will say, watching Darren Elkins just dog out fights is just absolutely a joy to watch. That dude, he has it's kind of the oddest style, but he just will just out dog you, and he will never quit on himself. It's just it's so fun to watch guys like Darren Elkins just go out there at his age and still just be able to force dudes to say, I'm out. I lost, this is it for me with the UFC. And Pineda was a good, that was a great fight. Pineda was no slouch. He's a dog too. And, he outdogged a legit dog in Pineda. And that was an awesome fight. I loved watching that. And like you said, we had a few other surprisingly fun fights on that card. So it was a great card. I had a good betting day too, Dan. I don't know about you, but I had a pretty good day betting UFC last week.
Austin Lane.
I wanted to shout out to our guy Gavin in the MMA chat before the fights, literally right before the fight started, maybe 10 or 15 minutes prior to the fight started. He dropped 2 bets, and one of them was Austin Lane by decision. It was 15 or 14 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook. So shout out to Gavin, because he dropped that in the Discord, and then obviously first fight of the night, and he hits the decision prop. I got on it a little bit because right when he posted, I was like, yeah, that's that if he wins, I think he wins by decision. I don't think he's putting his lights out, and yeah, it happened that way. So it was an awesome bet. I also got on him live, Dan. The live betting odds for the first couple fights were actually where I made a lot of money, because there were just some lines where I was like, is this crazy? The Lane line, he was going into the third round, he was plus 225 or something. And at one point plus 400 before he got that takedown. So I hit it a couple times before that third round and in that third round. So live betting MMA is just awesome. If you can do it in between rounds, it's the best. So
yeah, sure check that out. Sometimes it's the people who are betting live. It seems that a lot of times they just don't take into account the way round scoring works. Yeah. It's you'll have someone up easily up 2 rounds, and they'll still be getting plus money in the third round, and you're like, well, they're not about to get finished, so I don't know what the fuck is going on in this live number.
There was one of those other fights. Was it the chick fight? When I thought the chick had won the first 2 rounds, clearly, but there was some debate, and she was the dog. And I forget how big of a dog she was, but she was a pretty sizable dog. And I'm sitting there looking at her, and I'm just like, am I fucking crazy? Are we watching the same fight? Because I clearly have her up 2-0. And I know some people in the Discord I think it's 1-1, but I'm not sure. And I'm like, even if it's 1-1, you still should be betting that dog side. If you know someone won at least 1 round and the second one is questionable, that means at worst it's 1-1 going into the third. At best, though, you could be up 2-0. And if you're up 2-0, you just need them to last anyways. So it was an interesting. And then the scorecards, I think they all came back 30-27 in that fight that I'm thinking of. I can't remember which fight it was. I don't know if you recall that fight, but
I believe that was Martinez Arlene. I know a
yes.
lot of people hit Martinez the live number. I was not paying super close attention at that point. I was still riding high off my Austin Lane hit. But
Well,
yeah, I know a couple people in the Discord made some good money off of that. My bigger hits of that card were Elkins, who we already talked about, and Fluffy, who beat the absolute.
Yeah, I didn't have that. You had that. You were all over. We were actually fighting it out for the old Hector contest, and I think it was me and you left. Well, like, you know, I had Pereira, you had Fluffy in the contest, and so obviously you won because Fluffy just dominated him and stuff like that. It was weird to me in that fight. Was it weird to you that Pereira? To me, it didn't seem like he tried to go all out in round one to like get Fluffy out of there. Like at one point, I thought he had Fluffy a little bit hurt. He was backing up. He kind of like shelled and I thought he was just going to unload because I thought that was like.
When he hit him with that front kick to the body, I was like, oh, I'm fucked. Yeah. It's over. Like, I'm dead. But
and he didn't throw that kick again. He didn't.
It's really odd. It's really odd when these guys who like one of their best attributes is like their aggression early in fights, and then they sort of they'll come out sometimes and just not do that because they're afraid of gassing or whatever. But it's like, if you're not going to pursue your best path to victory, whether you gas or not doesn't fucking matter. And we saw that like play out exactly with Pereira. So yeah, hate to 100%. See that. Unless you're
all right. Well, let's get to this card. My guy, Easy Money. Am I on the up to lock tonight for NBA? That'll be my third show today, but I think I am. So we'll see. But I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna end up on that show. So I'm gonna try my best to make it through. I got a meeting in a couple shows, but I think I'm gonna get there for the NBA up to lock. Wife's working anyways late tonight, so I'll probably be there for the old up to lock show for NBA. RPS 15% off. If you guys want to come hang out, we got a good NBA crew. It's starting off good couple nights, and hopefully we can keep it going here with the NBA, and then obviously NFL. We got the Prim Factory at 3 Eastern time with me, Big T, and ODB. So if you're into football, that'll be after this show here. So stay tuned for that. All right. MMA time. Let's get it rolling here. I'll just go by the DraftKings, how they have it lined up here. We got Fakhretdinov and Leal here. Fakhretdinov 8,900 on DraftKings. Leal 7,300 here on DraftKings. Dan, I'll throw this one to you to start here. Obviously, Fakhretdinov is a favorite coming in. The line did move, though, a little bit in Leal's favor, I think, recently. But Fakhretdinov still sitting, pretty sizable favorite here, minus 245 on DraftKings. Who do you like here?
I like Fakhretdinov. He hasn't really been my favorite in the past just because, but like, the main red flag with Fakhretdinov is if he's not like getting on top of you and finishing you early, then he tends to gas. And that's because he has like such an aggressive style to start. So he's very prone. He's got cardio issues. So he's like extremely boomer bust in that way. He's going to be really popular on this slate. Ownership is like relatively flat just because we have 13 fights. We've got 2 championship fights. I still think he's a solid play. He rates out decently, like in my stuff. The only thing is like if Leal can manage to scramble, survive, get up. On the one hand that, Fakhretdinov, he's live to score, 5-6 takedowns if he doesn't finish Leal. So he's definitely live to score well in a decision. The cardio is just like my main concern. But on the flip side of that, Leal also, seems to like slow down towards the end of fights. And his offensive output is like pretty mid, he's not really trying to push pace or anything like that. He's competent defensively, is probably the best I could say for him, but he is prone to being submitted. So I would not at all be surprised to see I picked Fakhretdinov by decision, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him catch an early sub.
All right. I just Easy Money. Just shoot me a DM in Discord, just so I know, and I'll try and remember to give it away. And then just let me know, how you want to give it away. If it's, via Venmo, PayPal, whatever you got, and I'll make sure that happens, either if I'm on or I'll tell the guys that are on to make sure that happens. So appreciate you giving out a $100 ticket. That's pretty awesome. So shout out to you. I know you had a nice hit a couple days ago in the Discord. So congrats again. For this fight here, I think the one thing I will say about Fakhretdinov is he gets kind of sloppy at times. Like in early in fights, he's definitely going to look like the minus 250 favorite, maybe even a bigger favorite. I don't know, like maybe even a little bigger favorite. But the more the fight goes on, the more it just kind of gets sloppy and sloppy here. And it wouldn't shock me if someone like Leal just kind of tried to stay safe. Yeah, he's defending takedowns. He's probably going to get taken down early. He knows he's probably going to get taken down early. But that's the thing with Fakhretdinov is like, if you can just find a way to get it past that round and a half and get him to a point where he gets tired, he will get sloppy. And the one thing with Leal is he is one of those guys that he wants to pressure you. He wants to push you onto your back foot up against the cage. At times it feels like almost empty pressure because he's not always just like throwing volume out there. He's kind of trying to find his timing when he's doing it. So he's not someone who's going to like completely unload, but he's also someone who I think can hurt someone like Fakhretdinov if he does a sloppy, shot, in the late in the second round, and he can catch him with something, because Leal does have some power. So I think this fight goes to decision, and where Fakhretdinov probably wins a 29-28, but I could see Leal, later in the fight having more and more success here. It's not a fight that I'm probably going to bet on. If I did bet on it, it'd probably be the dog, just from the standpoint that, I'm not minus 245 for Fakhretdinov, who I've kind of watched just, at times not look good later in fights. I'm just not into. So for me, it's not a fight that I love from a betting perspective. From a DFS side, I think Fakhretdinov holds the upside for sure because of the takedown. So if you're looking at it from a DFS side, obviously look at it different from a betting side. You're just looking, how can my guy, whoever I'm taking in this fight, where's the path to his upside? Fakhretdinov's path is very simple. Volume takedowns, control time, which we've seen when he gets those volume takedowns, he's putting up 100 plus, right, Dan? And when he's not getting those volume takedowns, he's putting up, lower scoring numbers than 100 plus. But yeah, if he's getting big number takedowns, he's the DFS play for sure. So I'm assuming, you're going to be heavy on Fakhretdinov for DFS.
I haven't really run my stuff yet, but I can see myself getting, like, if he's going to be 29%, I'll probably just be like a shade under that. Leal on the other side, I've got him at around like 11% right now. He's definitely like the leverage side. And if you look at, this range, like Max Holloway and below, he is like one of the options that I think is most live to pick up a win here. So I don't hate him, but I don't think I'm going to be going.
I actually thought what I've watched of Leal is pretty solid. And again, he's not fighting in the UFC, but he's fighting in other like solid promotions. And, he's not like someone who's 8-0 or 10-2 or so. Like, he's got a lot of fights under his belt. You know what I mean? I think his record's like 21-5 or something like that. So he's fought a lot. He's not just, some guy who's coming off of, some easy promotions and he's only fought 8 times. You know what I mean? I think he's definitely more live. That's why for me, it's either dog or pass on this fight. But, I get it if you want to stay away. The lower volume, I think with the wrestler, I think he's just going to be focused early on stuffing takedowns. And, he's not someone who's going to put out a ton of volume, especially or wrestling volume, right? He's not going to do that to Fakhretdinov. So it's going to be more a patient approach, which probably won't score well unless he gets a finish. So, at that point, just bet the money line finish only thing on DraftKings, where if it goes to decision, then you get your money back at that point with Leal. So I don't hate that if you wanted to look at a bet. But let's go to the next fight here. We got Nourdine versus Silva. Nourdine right now sitting a -170 favorite versus Bruno Silva. We know exactly what Bruno Silva is. He's coming off, I think it's three straight losses and 4 of his last 5 losses here, 2 decision losses and 2 losses by submission. Now, the 2 losses by submission were to, guys who have, really good grappling games, especially on the ground, Allen, Mearshart, but he has not looked good, Dan, recently. And, I just struggle backing him. The line's going in Nourdine's favor. I feel like it's moving more and more towards him. Mm-hmm. He's 8,300 on DraftKings, Nourdine, and Silva 7,900. Do you like this fight here? Because it is one of those like mid-tier fights that could, in DraftKings, lineups, fit your builds.
You said it. This is like the battle of mid, right? Like both these guys have cardio concerns. I mean, Silva is 1-5 in his last 6. I think last time out he got eye poked to death by Chris Weidman. So sort of give him a pass there. But like, Silva's a BJJ black belt. However, he has no wins by submission and is extremely vulnerable on the mat. And while I don't really think all that highly of Nourdine, and his output is a little concerning, he does mix in the takedowns. His wrestling is average at best, but he can find submissions, and I think that is probably the most likely outcome if we find a finish here. It is reasonably priced, but without a finish, it's going to be tough for either of these guys to find the optimal. And like we said, I have very little confidence in Silva. He seems to be on a decline, a steady decline here. So yeah, I think Nourdine is a fine kind of mix in. He has been scoring some knockdowns. Or nope, sorry, that's I was reading the wrong note. Yeah, these are just 2 pretty unexceptional guys. I believe this is Nourdine's UFC debut, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
he's been fighting in Brave. Yeah. He also,
he's fought before. I think it was a while ago though, right?
Right. This is his second stint in the UFC. The odd thing with Nourdine is his record on the regional scene. He's been fighting in Brave. He's 4-3 in Brave, which is you don't really see that too often. Someone who's been losing like that on the regionals. So, this is a very this is a super trashy fight.
He's not really that good. From what I've seen of him, he's not really that good. I know what Bruno Silva is, but you're not going to go out there even in Bruno Silva's losses. It's not like he's getting knocked out, Dan.
Right?
He's not. He's losing decisions. He's getting eye poked.
He's getting clubbed and subbed.
He's getting subbed, right?
Yeah. That's the thing. He hasn't been getting knocked out, but he's been getting hurt and knocked down and then submitted.
But again, with those guys, those are guys that when they get on the ground are gonna submit a lot of people. If they Allen and Mearshart, if they drop you and get you on the ground in an advantageous position, they're gonna probably sub 95 to 99% of the guys that happens to. So I don't know. I get it.
I think Nourdine is live to get the sub. And I think if you play him, that's really what you're looking for, because Silva has just been so vulnerable on the ground. But I mean, pricing puts both of these guys in play. Silva has, solid power, and Nourdine has been getting, again, he's been getting knocked out in Brave against regional scene guys. So, there's a lot of volatility here. So while I don't love either of these guys from a talent perspective, pricing and all those factors, it puts them both in play. But I'm not going to go crazy here. I'm probably going to be pretty flat. I'm probably going to be pretty flat on most of my exposures here outside of the championship fight and the other 5-rounder, the co-main. I'm, surprise, surprise, I'm probably going to be double shoving the 5-rounders. I don't think there's really any way around that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can.
I don't see any way around it either. No. Those fights are going to be optimal.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a case to be made that maybe like Whittaker could get left out of the optimal and win, but even so, he's 7,500 in a 5-round fight, and I think his path to victory is like a late round finish or a decision. So he's going to be getting more than 3 rounds to rack up points. We talked about Whittaker and his supposed like lack of ceiling last time he fought, and he was optimal with a 1st-round finish. So
Yep.
Doubt Robert Whittaker at your own peril.
Yeah, no, he's definitely got upside for the finish here, or for like a decent score, I guess, at that price tag. But I think the more we talk about this, the more I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna take a shot on Bruno Silva. I just don't like what I see from Nurdiev, and I agree with you. If I were to bet Nurdiev, I think it'd be buy sub. Like I kind of like that look. It's plus 400 on DraftKings. I think that's a fun little bet if you wanted to go there. But yeah, Bruno Silva, again, you could do this again where you just take finish only and go with the money line finish only. If it goes to decision, you get your money back, plus 165 for Bruno Silva. I don't hate that. So yeah, that's going to be my pick. I'll probably be a little higher on him just with him being a little cheaper. But I agree with Dan. Overall, not a great DFS fight, probably, just in general. So let's go to the next fight here. Farhad Basharat versus Victor Hugo. Hugo sitting plus 525 dog here to Basharat, minus 750 on DraftKings. Dan, I think we're going to just see a lot of grappling in this match. I think this match is going to play out a lot, in the clinch and or on the ground. Victor Hugo is someone, if you haven't watched a lot of him fight, he will throw up submissions, whether it be from the clinch, from his back. He does have a pretty slick submission game. I think in his Contender Series, he won with a knee bar. So this guy is dangerous, has a lot of submission wins. He's also a little wild. He's got power. He'll throw some spinning attacks. He'll do some things in the cage that are, maybe a little wild. I think he's got more power and more finishing upside than Basharat. Basharat's upside is more in the control time takedowns, because Victor Hugo, the one thing that you will see when you watch him fight is he can get controlled up against the cage, and he can be okay with being on his back because he trusts his grappling. It's not like he's laying on his back and not doing anything, Dan. He's active off his back. But, when that happens, if you have really good grapplers and you can't do anything with the submissions from your back, you end up being on your back for long periods of time. So, he is dangerous. I think he's the more dangerous fighter. But again, Basharat just seems like one of those guys that's going to fight smart. If he doesn't get the finish, it's not a big deal to him. He's just going to kind of, position over submission him if he needs to, which I think he will, because Victor Hugo is dangerous. And I think he's going to realize it when, this fight goes to the mat early and they're both still kind of, dry. And Victor Hugo's trying to throw, crazy shit up from his back. So I don't love this fight for DFS because I don't think there's a finish at all. I don't think there's a finish. And Basharat's 9,600. Maybe he scores 100, but in a decision win, I don't think he's beating me here at 9,600, Dan. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would push back on, Basharat, he's implied like 35% to find a finish. So honestly, like not some of the worst on the card, but not exactly what you would want from a 9,600. The thing is like he has such a wrestling heavy style. And I just don't think, like, I think skill for skill, Basharat is just much, much better than Hugo. Even though Hugo is dangerous, like he can throw up submissions. He's got some decent power. But I just think Farid is just, he's got him covered basically everywhere when it comes to skill. And I think he is just going to like chain wrestle the fuck out of him and control him. Like Hugo can be taken down and controlled. And that is exactly like Farid's game. So it's a terrible matchup for Hugo. And the other thing was at weigh-ins, this was supposed to be at 135, but Hugo came in 10 pounds heavy. and Basharat agreed to fight this at catch weight. So Hugo weighed in at 145, was supposed to be at 135. Basharat is 137. And usually we like him weight miss, you know, like last week with Jocelyn Edwards, like she's 3 pounds, but this is like the complete other extreme. It's like you come in 10 pounds overweight, like that is, I mean, for one thing, it's like extremely unprofessional. It's not fucking good for your
It's
stock.
like, did you try at all?
Yeah, it's
like at all.
Are you injured? Is there something going on with your health?
Maybe.
And you know, the market has
He's
reacted.
a thick dude for that weight. Like if you like look at him, you know, he looks, you know, pretty big for that weight. Like when you look at him in Basharat, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, like he's got more muscle. Like he definitely looks like the stronger, you know, even if he made weight, he would still look like the more, you know, thick, you know, strong person. But yeah, that's definitely some good calls and concerns for
this type of miss is extremely concerning, especially against, you know, the good Basharat, who is quite skilled. And it was a bad matchup for him from the start. So I struggle to see many paths to victory for Hugo. Let's see how owned he's going to be. I'm showing like 13% owned right now. That feels a little bit high to me. I think he'll probably come in closer to single digits because like
it feels way high.
Yeah, the market has reacted to his like massive weight miss. He was before weigh-ins yesterday about, you know, he was still like a plus 475 dog, but now that's swelled all the way up to plus 550. So, I mean, 9,600 is a really huge tag for Basharat, especially since you're going to want to be getting to these championship fights. But I really don't hate it because I think he can score, you know, if he's not finishing him, which this is, you know, lined to go to decision, I think it's going to come.
I think he needs a finish, Dan, because I just don't, because I think if he gets Hugo down, I think he can control him. I don't know if you're going to get the volume. It still scores well. I just don't know. I think you need the volume takedowns for him to like smash that price tag. Is all I'm saying. Now maybe he gets a late finish. You know, that's possible. Like maybe he gets a late finish here, but it's just crazy to me though. Victor Hugo by submission is 30 plus 3,500. What? That's wild. Like that just tells you though that something's got to be off with, because I feel like that number is just insane anyways. Like he's got good grappling. It might not be as good as Basharat, but when you watch him, like he's going for submissions. He's not just going to lay on his back. Like I guarantee you that. He might fail, but he's going to go for it.
So if Hugo is going for it, like off of his back and going for submissions, you know, Basharat might show a little more urgency to just get him out of there and ground and pound him, which I think is very much in play. So, you know, we'll talk about
that's some plus 800, Dan. If you like the KO, it's plus 800.
Don't tempt me.
I'm tempted myself after you said it. I'm tempting myself. You can take on DraftKings too. You can do fun things where you just take like the, you know, Basharat by KO, Hugo by submission is plus 600. You could take both of them if you want, like to have a sweat on both sides and stuff like that. Or you could just do the finish only with Basharat. I mean, KO and submission, he's plus 200, Dan. So you could get, you know, both sides. Then you're just hoping he finishes them. I don't hate that. Like if you want to root on a fun bet. For sure.
It's not too bad. Again, like the finishing odds are not what you want to see for a 9,600 guy, but you know, just all the factors included, matchup, weight miss, all that shit. Like I think he's only going to be like 22% owned. I don't mind coming in about around there, to be perfectly honest with you. I'll probably come in a little lower. I'd still have to build. 9,600 is expensive. I don't really see too much in the top range that I'm really going to be trying to force in. So
let's get to the next guy in that top range, and we'll talk about him here. But Kennedy and Chukwu sitting right now a minus 800 favorite versus Chris Barnett. We've been watching these heavyweights, Dan, just disappoint. These big time, big favorite heavyweights just come in and just absolutely destroy, you know, your DFS lineups. This line is insane. Like Kennedy and Chukwu is talented, but my God, can you not trust him? And I know it's against Chris Barnett. And when we go through, I know Dan he'll probably talk about who Chris Barnett has fought. I don't care who he's fought. I know he's fought cans. I mean, this dude was Chris Barnett was a minus 375 or plus 500 favorite, whatever it was, plus 450 to fucking Collier. Like Collier was a minus 375 favorite against Chris Barnett. Now, Chris Barnett did find a finish because Collier is very incompetent.
After Collier took him to the absolute limit to start the fight.
He tried to take him down. He whiffed. Chris Barnett got right on his back, and then he tried to roll for something. I don't know what. And he just got caught with Chris Barnett mounted on top of him, and just, I mean, dude, when someone that size, Dan, gets on top of you and is in mount, it's really hard to like get away from that when they're that heavy. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was just the end. But it was just funny though, because Chris Barnett's eye was shut. If you watch the first round, it could have been stopped. Yeah. You know, Chris Barnett, the doctor came in after the first round and they looked at his eye. It was completely shut, but he was like, I'm good. You know, that's the thing with Chris Barnett and these type of guys. They're not super talented, but they're going to fight for your money. Like, they're going to go out there. They're going to give it their all. So, I mean, I don't think it's a DFS play, Dan, at all. I think if you're playing DFS and you want something in this fight, it's the favorite. It's in Chukwu. But from a betting perspective, I do not trust Kenny and Chukwu with my money at all. And, you know, if anything, it's the dog or pass. Like, just either dog or nothing for me. What are you doing here?
Yeah, I'm not going to go crazy with it, but like from a betting perspective, I'll take the massive plus money on a heavyweight every single time. You know, I'm going to be treading extremely lightly. I'm talking like I'll throw fucking maybe like $20 at Chris Barnett just in case he hits like a
just for fun, Dan.
Yeah, just for fun.
Yeah.
Just for fun. Like maybe he hits a spinning wheel kick and knocks Chukwu out. The thing is like you talk about how untrustworthy Chukwu has been. That was down at light heavyweight. Now this is his first fight up at heavyweight, so I think there's some like credence to the idea that, you know, the weight cut was really affecting him negatively and affecting his performances negatively. I watched the weigh-in show yesterday. Kennedy looked good on the scales. Like, he's putting on the weight. He's doing it slow. He's doing it like it looks like he's doing it the right way. So, you know, I think this could totally be a situation where you see like, you know, you see guys move weight classes and it's like, oh, they're not so good down here. And then they move up or they move down and it's like, whoa, whole different fucking fighter. Yeah, I don't, you know, outside of like a puncher's or a wheel kicker's chance, I don't see much. And it pains me to say this because I love Chris Barnett. He's so much fun. Like, watching a guy that big move the way he does is a lot of fun. But, you know, from an athleticism and physicality standpoint, it's just, this is a massive mismatch. You know, Nchukwu's got like an 8-inch read advantage. He's 6 inches taller. Obviously more physically fit. Yeah, I mean, this probably ends badly for Barnett. It probably ends inside the distance. The thing you run into though is, you know, you've got Chukwu at 9,700, which is a tough tag to pay off, man. Like, you're gonna need a quick win bonus. And, you know, depending, you know, you need a hospital 130, which is firmly on the table. He's just really hard to get into lineups because there's a lot of solid, you know, again, you've got the 2 5-round fights, which you want to jam. You've got a lot of mid-range guys and kind of lower 9K guys that are just, you know, maybe not quite as good from finishing perspective, but are just as live, if not more live, to make value. So, you know, similar to Basharat with Chukwu, like, you're obviously playing them because they've got immense upside, but their price tags just make it really hard to truly jam them.
Yeah, I will just say, if I was Kennedy and Chukwu by submission plus 550, Chris Barnett is like one of those guys that he'll, like, even when he gets knocked down, like, he'll still try and fight. And Kenny and Chuck was so much bigger than Chris Barnett. I wouldn't even be surprised if, like, they were in the clinch and he found something like standing because of how much bigger he is than this dude. So again, it's not, I know Kenny Nchukwu not like some submission guy, but I think like he could find himself in a position because of how Chris Barnett, fights, and he just finds himself in a spot where he can grab a hold of the neck or something like that and find a submission here. So plus 550.
They've done like they've done ceremonial weigh-ins yet and done like the face-offs, because like if anybody hasn't seen these two guys or is like uninitiated, doesn't know, like this is like the difference between these two guys is laughable. I'm gonna try to pull this up.
You can screen share it too. All you got to do is hit present at the bottom, Dan. It'll say present, and then you can click the share screen.
I gotta shut down all my porn tabs first, man. Hold on.
Yeah, you got to shut those down. Don't be sharing the porn stuff.
All the weird shit that I've been watching. No, yeah, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this trying to find it, but I mean, oh yeah, here we go.
I was gonna say it's gotta be out there somewhere. It's literally like if you saw like it's literally like if you saw me and Big T standing next to each other almost.
Yeah, me and
like
JB.
The size difference is insane.
All right, actually, so I have this pulled up on a different screen. I'm double laptoping it here like a true professional, but yeah. These two guys facing off is just like funny as shit.
Did you find it or no?
Yeah, I found it. I found the right moment. I just got to pull it up on
It's it is the dumbest fight. It's just. Yep, I agree.
Like, okay, so how do I screen share here?
All you do is hit present and then click screen share, and then it's going to ask you for the tab. Just click the tab that you want.
I got to go into my settings and shit. Got to allow. Okay. We're almost there, y'all. This is a whole new thing for me.
Well, so as you do that, I just saw
it's going to make me shut everything down, and then I'm going to lose on.
All right, don't even worry about it. Trust us. So if you want to go check it out, you can go check it out.
Shit, so
yeah.
Now I can't hear you. Okay, there you are.
Dan Tech Boomer. There we go. I agree.
Yeah, I
agree. Just trust Dan on this, people. Okay, trust Dan. There's a massive difference. It's funny if you want to go see it.
I wasn't ready for this. At around 7.5 minutes of the ceremonial weigh-ins, you'll see the Barnett and Chukwu face off, and it's just like, how the fuck are these two guys fighting? And the answer is it's heavyweight, and heavyweight is a shit show.
Yeah. So a couple things here. Is there a Print Factory episode this week? There is. It's right after the show. It's at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Me, Big T, and ODB will be on for the Print Factory. So if you're waiting on that show, that's at 3. So come back. Obviously watch this show, and then we'll be on pretty much right after that. So 3 o'clock Eastern time should be the time. And then my guy Uncle T talking about our boy Oliveira season. It's not Do Bronx. I know it's an MMA show. We're talking about Josh Oliver from yesterday. First touchdown bet was 40-1. We hit that bitch at 40-1 plus 850. It was on my it was on the sheet where the showdown cores we put like our favorite anytime touchdown and first touchdown bet. It was on my first touchdown and anytime bet. Shout out to the people who bet that at 40-1. They're the real ones here. Those are the best first touchdown bets, Dan. Like I get, I get the people that put like the favorite guys, like Kyron Williams and those type of guys and stuff. But man, like you hit one of those and your season is set from there. Like you don't like it's covered. You know what I mean? Like if you bet one every like primetime game, pretty much, Dan, your season is almost covered. You hit a 40-1. So it's awesome when it happens. And I'm not saying that, I hit them all the time or I've a high success rate with 40-1 first touchdown bets, but I will say I've hit a couple long shot, 25 plus to ones this year. So I've hit like 3. Yeah, exactly. That's my point though. If you bet them, you don't have to hit many to be clean. Like if you bet the other side, you got to hit a few of them, you know? So it's different, obviously. But anyone have Sheffield, Oliveira, Robinson anytime? Definitely not. Definitely. I did not have Sheffield. That was wild. But crazy game yesterday. I guess the refs wanted to go home early. They didn't want to, call the obvious face
mask. It was one of the worst non-calls I've ever fucking seen, dude.
I mean, dude, his neck.
What do they think? Away.
What did he think? He fucking turned his neck like that on purpose? Like, I don't know. Bro, it was so bad when the defender, I forget his name, but when the defender who sacked him, like got up, he immediately put his hands like on his head because he knew. He was like, oh, fuck. Like, I by accidentally grabbed his face mask and ripped him down. He knew it, and they still didn't throw the flag out. I was like, what are we watching? And the fact that you can't challenge in the 2-minute or under on stuff that's clear like that is absolutely ridiculous. That they have these booth now. They have the booth reviews that are just they just kind of tell them like, nope, this is a first down or whatever. Why can't they just call just under 2 minutes, Dan, in the fourth quarter? I don't even care about the second, just the fourth quarter, under 2 minutes. Why can't they just call down and say, you guys missed it? It's a clear face mask, throw the flag, and let's move.
Yeah, it's insane. I'll never understand that. It's like we have the technology. We can get these things right. Everybody at home is sitting there, knows what happened. Like, everybody knows what happened. Yeah. But, it's just, I don't know. I guess it's like some boomer, like the human element. I don't know. It's very stupid. The defender too, he had a pretty funny post this morning where it was like a screen cap of him like holding his head, and someone was like, even he knew he did it, and he responded and he was like, no, I was covering my ears, it was really loud in there.
So. That's a good response though for something like that. Like that's how you do it. But
every time I watch NFL, I'm like, this sport is so fucking dumb.
I don't get how they can take 2 steps forward and still be 2 steps back. Like they do these booth reviews that are just like kind of automatic. They call down to the field. And I'm like, this is good. They're speeding up the game. We don't have to stop and go to a commercial every time there's a questionable, was it a first down? Was it not? They just say, nope, it is. Keep going. And they fix it. Why can't they do it under 2 minutes with just about anything? I don't understand, but this is an MMA show. Whatever. Next fight on the card. Bruno Ferreira versus Abus Magomedov here. Magomedov sitting at -148. Favorite on DraftKings Sportsbook. Magomedov on DK is sitting at 8,400 on DraftKings. Ferreira sitting at 7,800. Dan, this is another one of those fights that's priced correct, like nice for the mid tier. You know what I mean? You got one guy with big power. Both guys kind of questionable with the cardio. I feel like Fajeda is a little more questionable for sure, though. And Abus can throw in some wrestling, which I think is the big thing in this fight. Because if he does try and wrestle early, Dan, I think it's going to just tire Fajeda out even earlier in this fight. If his game plan is, I want to wrestle, right off the bat and then see what this guy has later in the fight. So I'm on the Abus side. I think that, this line at -148, I think it should be a little bigger than this, but I get Fajeda has, knockout power and, one shot could do it for him. But where are you at with this fight?
Yeah, I think this is a great fight to target. Obviously, it's got some of the better finishing odds on the entire fight, on the entire card. And like I said before, ownership is looking very flat. So on another card, this would probably be catching a lot more ownership. Both of these guys have cardio concerns. Both have some durability concerns. So I think we're looking at a hospital 130. Hopefully they don't come out like, there's always the risk when you've got two guys with like finishing ability like this, that they both come in a little bit, careful and wary, and you sort of find yourself in like a little bit of a staring contest. I think Abus is the rightful favorite, even though there's a ton of variance in this matchup. But, skill for skill, Abus is like, he's just a better wrestler. I think Fajeda, like his best main path and maybe his only path to victory is, finding a knockout, which he absolutely can do. but I just think it's that path is a little more thin than all the paths that Abus has. But again, like cardio and durability concerns on both sides. This is a fight where, you know, even though I think Abus is the rightful favorite, I'm not really looking to, and this is going to be a theme throughout the card, I'm not really looking to take a major stand on either of these guys. I just want in on this fight.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think from a DFS perspective, that's the way to approach it, probably, as opposed to like my betting perspective is I like a boost. I
Yep.
think he's the guy. I think the line should be a little wider, and maybe I'm just wrong, but I see value there, so I'm
Yep.
betting a boost. Like I'm not like hedging in any other way. I'm taking a boost. But from a DFS side, Fayeda's still got big power. I know that, he's got knockout upside, in early knockout upside. Now, a boost, has, I think, a few different paths, but he
Yep.
definitely has some wrestling upside, and he could finish the fight later on, I think. So they both these guys have upside for DFS, and I think it's a good idea to take some shots on both. Now, I will be higher on a boost just because I'm betting him and I like him a little more. But I will still have some Fada in, DFS, but I will be higher on a boost. Is there one guy you're going to go a little higher on, or are you going to be like split 50-50 or 40-40 on this fight, you think?
I think it just depends on how, again, I haven't built yet, but it's really just going to depend on how the builds shake out. Like, obviously, you're saving 600 with Fajeda.
Yep.
Again, I'm not trying to make too strong a stand either way here. I am concerned. There is like a sizable reach and height discrepancy here. Abus is much longer. Abus is huge for the division. Like, he's very big. He uses his kicks really well. He manages range really well. So, I think Fajeda's going to have, like, his best shot is to kind of get inside and start, sort of like phone booth fighting, but he's going to have a really hard time doing that against.
The problem is if he gets too close, he's got to be careful of getting taken down. That's the other thing. So, because I think Boost wants to stay at kicking range, right, Dan? And Fada wants to get into the pocket, right? So these guys want to be in two different spots. Now, if they get into that pocket, does Boost just say, you know what? I'm not swinging with you. I'm going to wrestle you. You know what I mean? Which is the smart thing.
Fajeda's takedown defense is also pretty bad. So I think if and when it comes to that, Magomedov is not going to have too much of a problem. Getting him down and hopefully finding a finish, because I'm really concerned about that cardio, man. Like, if he gets him down but can't find a finish later in the fight, I think the later the fight gets, it's probably advantage Fajeda.
I don't know about that. What if Fada gets wrestled? He's going to be tired too. I could see a world where both guys get tired.
We haven't seen Fajeda actually go too deep in any fights, have we? Yeah.
No, and that's what I'm worried about. Like, I know that a boost could get tired, but
Fajeda's never been to a third round, so that's definitely
what happens when this fight goes to decision, Dan, and they're just both gassed at the end. They're just both like hugging each other at the end, like, because they just got nothing left.
Honestly, that's not what you want to see.
Who are you taking if you had to bet this fight?
Abus.
All right, cool. Let's go to the next fight. We got Rebecki and Oralbai here. Oralbai sitting a -325 favorite here against Rebecki, +260 here. For DFS, both these guys, we have seen both guys have big upside from the wrestling standpoint. Dan, it's kind of like a little bit of a clash here with the wrestling. Both these guys want to wrestle. Rebecki in his last fight got beaten up a little bit, lost in the third round. But before that, he's put up, 100 plus in his 3 wins, and Oralbai in his 2 wins have put up 100 plus. So in theory, these look like pretty good, DFS plays. It's just which side you would want. And do they kind of counter each other where maybe there's a little wrestling on both sides and no one's like dominating the wrestling exchanges? Or do you think that Oralbai just dominates the wrestling exchanges all fight?
I don't think he necessarily dominates, although that, he's been fighting very low level competition. I'd say Rebecki's competition is a little bit stronger. I think, like both of these guys, I think a wrestling heavy fight, like despite the fact that like these inside the distance numbers aren't too good. I think this is a fight you want to target just because there will be a ton of wrestling, a lot of exchanges. I think both of these guys are like capable of getting up once taken down, and that kind of like sets the table for multiple takedowns. Again, lots of exchanges on the ground, all things that score very well on DraftKings. I'm on the Oralbai side, but I will say that I think I think this line is a little bit wide. I think Rebecki is a bit undervalued. Like he did absolutely lay an egg his last time out, like losing as a massive favorite. And the market is always going to kind of like react to that. But I think it's a bit of an overreaction. Obviously it's a one fight sample. So I'm not crazy about, I'm not crazy about the overreaction here on the line. Again, running theme on this card, like Rebecki at 7,100, I think he's one of the better dogs. Oralbai at 9,100 is, he's well priced for his upside. The chain wrestling, he's probably going to be the more physically strong of the two. So, it's just
I think he's got the better gas tank too.
Yeah, but Oralbai, he started. Am I thinking of the right thing? I think I am.
He started getting tired a little bit, but I think Rebecki,
dude, he got taken down multiple times by Brenner in like the third round of that fight. So if he doesn't find a finish, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Rebecki can come on strong, kind of like in round 3 and finish him.
The problem is these guys' styles are the exact same. And when you have heavy wrestling, see, not everyone is Merab, right? Like there's mainly one Merab. Like most of the guys that have that or try to implement even close to that style of wrestling where there's 7 takedowns, 10 takedowns, whatever, you're going to eventually get tired. Like it's just, you're only so like, these guys are human at the end of the day. Like most of them are not fucking superheroes. They are going to get tired here. And that's the problem with like Oralbai and Rebecki is their styles are just going to, if they don't find a finish in the first or second round, they're going to be tired in the third round.
It's going to get sloppy.
Yeah.
It's going to get sloppy. And then that's when variance starts to sort of take hold.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that's to your point where Rebecki, the line does seem a little wide to me. So again, too, when you fight wrestlers, you got to be able to counter wrestle. Both these guys can wrestle. So like, I think it's just one thing to note here for this fight. So maybe I will take a shot on the dog. And I agree with you for DFS. I think this is one of the better 9K fights just overall. We talked about a few 9K fights already that we were like, not the best for DFS. But I think this is one of the better 9K fighters for DFS.
Yeah, I agree. Also, funny hat.
Great. Yeah, you always got to give him a little more for the hat. 100%. Yeah. All right, let's keep it going here. Next fight on the card, we've got Jeff Neal and Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos plus 260 here versus Jeff Neal, a minus 325 favorite here. Neal sitting at, 9,200 on DraftKings. Dos Anjos sitting at 7K. I think this fight is going to mainly play out on the feet. Jeff Neal's got pretty good takedown defense. I think he's the better guy, in the boxing, in the stand-up. And I don't know if it's a good DFS fight. I don't know if it scores extremely well for DFS. But I think from a betting angle, minus 325, maybe a little wide, Dan, just because, it's not like Dos Anjos is a slouch or anything like that. But I do think Jeff Neal is the rightful favorite and probably wins this fight as long as it stays standing. If this were to go to the ground, obviously, that would not be good, but he's been pretty good at keeping fights on the feet for the most part. So I got Jeff Neal. DFS side, I don't really like this fight at all, and I'll probably be full fading it. What are you doing?
Yeah, not a great fight DFS wise. You're looking at Jeff Neal at 9,200. You're hoping, if you play him, you're hoping for an early knockout. He's pretty much strictly a contrarian play. If you just need to, if you need some ownership relief, he's projected to come in around 18%, which actually isn't that much lower than, well, yeah, it's about 10% lower than Oralbai. I don't love it. RDA, his game is really predicated on sort of there's a lot of cage clinching. There's a lot of clinching you up, kind of grinding out the wins. I just don't really see it. We'll bust out the age model. RDA, it's actually it's a birthday narrative, but derogatory, because it's his birthday, but he's turning 40. So, you don't love that. I think Neal has got him on the feet. RDA has been pretty durable, although that is probably fading. RDA he's been around for a long time. He's 32 and 16, so he's got nearly 50 pro fights, and eventually that dam breaks. You can be historically durable, but eventually the human body can only take so much. So I think Neal is fine if you want to sprinkle him in as a contrarian play, somewhere where you again need ownership relief. You're trying to lower your dupes, but this isn't a fight that I'm going to be going out of my way to target. I'm fine coming in low. On the RDA side, 7K. There aren't too many dogs. There aren't too many dogs that I love all that much on this card. So, if you want to also sprinkle him in, I have zero problem with that, just because he has a grappling heavy style, which, in theory should score pretty well, but I just, I have a hard time seeing him win.
Yeah, me too. I think it's more of a cut and dry fight. So let's keep it going here. We got Abus Aslan sitting a plus 102 dog to Rafael Sequera minus 122 on the money line over at DraftKings. I'm on the Sequera side. He is 8K right now. Aslan is 8,200 for DraftKings fantasy. Dan, I think this fight probably, I think it could go over. I know people are going to look at it and be like, there's probably a hospital. Sequera has finished, was it all of his pro fights? I know he's 11-0. It's either 10 or 11 of his pro fights. They're all finishes.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure, but he doesn't do it in the style that you would think when you hear a guy has finished all of his fights. I don't think either of these guys are very good. I don't think they're either of them are awesome fighters or anything like that. Aslan, I've seen, he doesn't really have great head movement. He wants to fight in the pocket. He'll swing heavy. He does have power, so he can knock somebody out for sure. Sequera, from what I've seen of him, he's got good kicks. He wants more the kicking range. I feel like the pressure feels like sometimes empty pressure, but over time he'll put it on and finish the fight, obviously. But I've seen him finish a few fights with body kicks. He's got nice kicks. So I think it's going to be more Aslan is probably better if they're fighting in a phone booth. He's probably the guy that would win that fight. And if they stay more towards kicking range, it's Sequera. I think this fight goes over 1.5. I like the over 1.5 here, and I like Sequera minus 122 on the money line. Which side are you on, Dan?
I like Sequera as well. He's priced as the dog. First of all, 8,200 and 8K flat. This is a fight that I think you want to get to very heavily in your lineups. I think it does end inside the distance. I think and hope that these guys are just going to go and swing on each other. Although we were very heavy on Aslan last time out against Turkali, and I believe, they went to the third round, and I don't think he scored very well. So that he was a major disappointment on the last card he was on. But like you said, both of these guys have fight ending power. They knock out their opponents early. Like that third round for Aslan was the first third round he's ever seen. Sequera has never been to a third round. So you love to see that. The X factor here is I think Aslan is quite bad on the ground. And I think Sequera, there's pretty limited footage on Sequera, but from what is out there and what's available, he seems to be much better on the ground than Aslan. So I think the way this most likely plays out is they just swing on each other and somebody's going to die. But if they do hit the mat, Sequera probably has Aslan pretty covered there. And I probably like him to grab a submission if it does indeed find itself on the ground. So I think Sequera is the side, but I'm going to have both sides of this fight. And I'm like, it's broken record time. The ownership here is so flat that the more I'm looking at this card and looking at these ownerships, it's like, I don't think you have to worry about being duped. Like that's the beauty of these 13 fight cards. Once we get to like 12, 13, 14 fights, it's like, it's kind of like, I know it's like other sports too, where we have an NFL slate, right? Just for example, like this weekend where it's 13 games. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's so many games. Like I like the smaller slates because it's easier, blah, blah, blah. It's like the easier it is for you, the easier it is for your competition. So if you are a sharper player, if you kind of like know a little bit more, you like these large slates because it just opens up opportunities for your opponents to make mistakes. Like, so, a mistake like overthinking shit and trying to pivot off of a fight that's 8K flat and 8,200, with 81% implied probability to end inside the distance. Like, I'm going to let my opponents, I'm going to let the field try to outsmart themselves and get off of this fight. And I'm just going to jam it and pray for a hospital 130.
All right, there we go. Dan likes the hospital 130 here. Andy likes Dan, says Dan rocks.
Andy.
Joe says you can't tell him that even if he does. I think you can. Fuck it. I don't know. I think you could tell Dan he rocks. I don't know. I mean,
yeah. What the hell?
Yeah, I think that's fine. All right,
you can't make my ego any bigger, dude.
Let's go to the most meaningful fight on the card. Yes, I said meaningful. You know why I said meaningful? Because we got an Armenian on this damn card, are we? We got Armen Petrosyan, a plus 145 underdog on this card to that damn pirate, Shara Magomedov, minus 175. I'll tell you right now, Dan, I think you know this from us talking fights. I'm not a big fan of Shara. I know what the UFC's doing. Hey, let's give them kickboxers. Let's give them guys that, won't really test him on the ground, and let's see what he really has, and stuff like that. Okay, fine, whatever. Let's give him Armen Petrosyan, because you know why? Petrosyan is going to give him a fight. Like you want to fight, he's going to give him a fight. He fights smart, Dan. He's very good at what Shara is good at. And I think he's got better hands than Shara. I mean, you'll watch Shara. I watch Shara in some of his fights. He'll get backed up against the cage, and he'll still throw kicks. Like he'll still try and throw head kicks and body kicks when he's getting backed up. He doesn't even want to let his hands go. And I think he's going to be in trouble against someone like Armen, who is a smart fighter, who knows how to beat these guys. He's already beat CLD, which everyone coming in with, CLD, blah, blah, blah. And then Armen puts it on him, owns CLD. And it's like, okay, I think we see something similar to that. I also think that Armen could come in and throw in a takedown or two just to mix it up if he wanted to here, because I do think he could do that if he wanted to. Not saying he will do it, Dan, but I'm saying that's in his back pocket. I think he could get a takedown or two if he tried to do this against Shara, and I think he could have success on the ground if he wanted to. But I think he wins this fight. I like him as a plus 145 dog. From a DFS perspective, the only problem with Armen is even when he wins, he does not score very well because he is a very smart fighter, and he will just, point fight and try to win fights without trying to dominate fights, right, Dan? He's not like one of those guys that goes out there and tries to steamroll his competitor. He tries to just win fights in any way possible, even by small margins, and that just doesn't score well. But at 7,600, I think he's someone that, you know, if you're not playing in those high dollar, like the big $25 tournaments where you need the optimal, right? And you're playing in like higher dollar stuff. If I'm telling you, like, I think he wins as a dog at 7,600 and he helps you kind of fill in your lineups and he gets you 75 to 80, I don't think that's terrible for like some of the higher dollar tournaments with less people in it, you know, the single entry contest and stuff like that. I think he's a better like single entry type play, 3 entry max type play, and probably a bad, you know, $25 or mega, you know, mini max type play. Cause I don't think he's going to give that ceiling upside, but I think in a win, he could give you 70 to 80, which, you know, I always say it in the higher dollar contest, Dan, you just want 6 winners. Like if I get 6 winners in the 555 or the, you know, the $200, the single entries, I'm good with the outcome because you're going to win a lot because you don't need the optimal in a lot of those contests. But in the $25, in the $3, you're going to need the optimal. So, you know, that's where I'm at with Arman. I think he's a better bet than DFS play, but I'm not playing Shara. He's got no wrestling upside. He needs a finish at his price tag, I think. And I also think Arman's going to present some problems for him. So, Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. I did pick Shara at the by decision, just because I think I know, I'm sorry.
Damn you, Dan. I swear you do it just to go against me.
No, I would never. No, I did pick him just because I think he will land like the more impactful, damaging strikes. He throws more volume. But I do think Arman is skilled enough to like completely neutralize his upside. We've been fading Shara as a DFS play pretty much every single fight just because he is so limited. Like his game is extremely limited. I think he probably loses that fight against Tricoli if not for one of the most egregious, blatant fence grabs I've ever fucking seen.
That was like bullshit. Yeah, we had that sub call too. Yeah.
Completely swung the fight. Yeah, we were on Tricoli. We were on Tricoli by sub. I was definitely over Tricoli, which this is all very embarrassing to admit to after the fact. But yeah, I'm just like not high on Shara at all. You know, he's got one eye. The man has one eye, which is not, you know, it's not what I want to back in a fight. But like, you know, back to him being extremely limited as a fighter, like Mikey O took him down 3 times last time out. Like, he beat the shit out of Mikey O, but like Mikey O was able to take him down multiple times. And like Mikey O is not a wrestler or a grappler. That is another like very limited striker. So to your point, I think maybe Petrosyan does have maybe some sneaky upside. Just like the book is out on Shara, like his weakness is the wrestling and grappling. So, you know, Petrosyan, like you said, like pretty smart fighter. I think it would behoove him to try to take Shara down early and often. And if he does get him down, like Shara hasn't really shown all that much get up ability. You know, he was able to get up against Mike O, but again, Mike O is not a wrestler or grappler. So having said all that, I'm super not interested in this fight for DFS. Like, not at all. Shara is going to catch ownership because for whatever reason, he's a fan favorite. You know, he's a fan favorite, but he offers no wrestling or grappling upside. And I've got him projected for nearly 25% ownership. Like, there's no fucking way, dude. Like, I'm just not going there. And if the fucking smelly pirate like knocks Petrosyan out early and makes me look stupid, like, so be it. But Petrosyan has been, you know, extremely durable. I think the last time he hasn't been knocked out in years, and that was like on the regionals. So
I mean, Petrosyan's a decision fighter. Like, if you you know, what's the odds this fight goes to decision? It's got to be super high. Like, it's got to be really high, right, Dan? Like minus 200 plus.
This fight to end. I mean, yeah, this is implied 68% to go the distance. Petrosyan by decision, or sorry, Magomedov by decision.
It's minus 250. It's minus 250 for this fight to just go to decision pretty much.
Yeah. This is not a fight that I'm interested in. This is just like straight kickboxing with zero grappling.
And Armin's a really good kickboxer too. I know that's what Shar is like known for and stuff like that, but Armin's been fighting and he's not a slouch when it comes to that. I just think Armin's got better hands to go with the feet. I think Shar might have better like kicks, or more flashy, like a little more flashy type. Right. But I think his hands and his striking defense are terrible.
Yeah, Shar's hands are, he's all kicks, man. And like you just said, like his striking defense is dog shit. It's bad, man. Bad. It's super fucking hittable. We keep betting against Shara. We keep fading him, and the DFS fades have worked out. Betting against him, not so much, but hopefully Armin can bring it home for us. I like Armin as a bet as well.
All right, let's roll. Let's go to the next fight. This should be a good fight here. We got Lerone Murphy, minus 270 favorite versus Dan Ige, plus 220. Dan, we watched Lerone Murphy last time out, just absolutely put a show on Edson Barbosa, and I was on the Barbosa side. I was very wrong about that fight. He just, 5 rounds of just domination, but from this guy, Lerone Murphy, and it was awesome to see. And then last time out for Dan Ige was, I don't know if you want to take, you can't take anything negative away from it. He lost to Diego Lopes where, he won the 3rd round coming off a couch, like literally jumping off the couch. Like it's literally like, me getting off my chair and getting into a fight, like right outside from a guy who was training for the last like 6 months. And I've been sitting on my couch. Yeah.
He just got home from getting a massage.
It's crazy. And so, I give him, I don't take anything away from that fight. That was super impressive to me that he fought one of the most high level guys in Diego Lopes and went the distance with him and won a round, by the way, on top of it, was very impressive. So the one thing that I worry about is Lerone Murphy just might be a little bit more talented, like no matter where this fight goes. And that's the one thing. I love Dan Ige. He's a great dog to back because he's going to fight for your money. So I get it if people are like, yeah, this line's a little wide. Okay. I think Lerone might just have him though everywhere. I think he's just the more talented guy. I think he's this, he's a very smart fighter. Dan Ige is a smart fighter too, obviously, but I do think this fight goes to decision, Dan, and in a decision, how well are these guys scoring, especially Lerone Murphy? If I think he wins the decision, I don't know if he's optimal though in that scenario. So this is probably a fight I'm lower on. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty low on this fight. Like the finishing numbers are pretty abysmal, especially like it's more of a concern the higher price the guy is. So like Murphy at 8,900, his finishing prop is plus 425. Ige is plus 500. It's just not a fight that I'm interested in at all. Like Murphy, he does mix in the wrestling, and Ige's like takedown defense has been pretty questionable. So maybe, you get a couple takedowns. I just don't really see that being the way this fight plays out. And, I think Murphy, like you said, probably has Ige covered just about every facet of the game, but I do think this line is too wide. Like I will be betting Dan Ige just because, Danny, he's a dog, and that's my best argument for it is like this line is wide. Dan Ige is a dog. The market agrees too. Like the line is creeping, closer to Ige. He's still like a 2-to-1 dog, but this line was wider. I still like Ige as a bet. Not super interested in this fight for DFS. And I think Murphy.
Yeah, it's probably dog or pass.
Yeah. And like that's all that to say, I do think Murphy wins more often than not, but I don't think a high score necessarily comes with it unless he decides to, wrestle, which I don't think is super likely.
Yeah, I don't think so either. All right, let's go to a guy who will wrestle, Magomed Ankalaev, or, probably will wrestle here. A minus almost 400 favorite over on DraftKings right now versus Alexander Rakic. Rakic sitting a plus 310 dog in DK Sportsbook right now. We watch Rakic coming off I'm going to say a bad loss to Yuri because he was dominating until Yuri just said, fuck it. I'm done, and just kind of like went for him and crashed the pocket and just destroyed him. Which was very annoying because I had Rakic money line and I felt really good until that happened I think it was the second round. But Rakic is he'll make excuses like I had staph, whatever. I don't buy any of that shit, Dan. I think that his leg kicks again could play a big part if he implements them, which I think he will against a guy in Ankalaev who wants to wrestle. You slow him down a little bit. But I can't trust Rakic after what I watched. It's annoying to me. I don't think Yuri's a very good fighter either. I said that before. Like, I think he's just tough. Like, he's just one of those guys that, he just out toughs guys. And if you have a good game plan, which I thought Rakic did have a good game plan, then he got tired and that's when he lost. But he did have a good game plan up to that point. You can beat someone like Yuri. So maybe he won't get tired in this spot, Dan, and he'll keep a good game plan with Ankalaev. I just can't trust that. So, I think Ankalaev wins. But I also think Ankalaev's smart enough where this comes into play again. Like, these 9K guys, like, is he going to give me the upside that I need in a 3-round fight, being a smarter fighter? I just don't think so. So, yeah, it's not a fight that I want to target super high for DFS either at 9,400. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, no, this fight is not it's not really going to be a priority for me. Let me see what I've got in my initial run, like how much Ankalaev, because
it's going to be like the Jan fight. Like, he's just going to try and blow up his leg. Ankalaev's going to be smart, and I agree. Matty Ice, it's going to be a boring. It's going to be a DFS snoozer. Yeah, better real life fight, DFS snoozer, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ankalaev, like, obviously what you want out of him is you want kind of like you want an early knockout or you want like pure domination, and I don't really think either of those things are going to come too easily against Rakic. Like, for all of Rakic's flaws, he's only been knocked out. He's only been truly knocked out once. The other time he's been finished was a leg injury against Blachowicz. So yeah, I just not a super appealing fight DFS wise. I think I do like the Ankalaev side better. Although I will say, like you already mentioned, like the X factor here is Ankalaev has shown to be susceptible to leg kicks in the past, and that's a pretty big part of Rakic's game. So I could see a world where Rakic just like really beats up that leg and takes advantage of that. But other than that, I think Ankalaev is the rightful favorite. I fucking hope he gets the title shot, after this finally, because he's been deserving of it for quite a while. And like, I also disagree. I know like the common consensus out there is like Ankalaev is a boring fighter. I really don't think so, man. If you look at his highlights, he is a fucking monster. Like, when he finishes dudes, I think
it should be he's like a smart fighter. He doesn't fight like he's not a dumb fighter. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, having said all that,
again, if you're like, what is he, 19-1 or whatever he is, like, if you're that way, then you probably are a pretty smart fighter. Like, so Maddie says gotta bet Rakic. Are you betting Rakic at that line?
Where are we at?
Plus 310.
I mean, I think he loses. Like, I don't necessarily know. I don't necessarily think there's much value there, because I think Ankalaev is really that much better.
Yeah, that's how I kind of feel too. So,
like you said, that loss to Yuri it's pretty bad. Like, I agree with you that I don't think Yuri is that great of a fighter. He has two really good qualities, and one of them is his head is made of granite, and he just does not give a fuck and will just keep coming forward.
He's the most mentally tough UFC fighter I think I've ever seen.
I wish he would go
Like,
to a real gym, man. Like
yeah.
his social media, he's like off in Japan, like training with fucking samurai or what. It's like, dude, just like go
Well,
to
that's the thing with
go to a
Yuri.
real gym, dude.
He's not a great, like, he's not super, he's like a supreme, he's a supreme athlete though. You can
Yeah,
tell it because the best athletes in the world, they can be in one spot and be getting crushed, but put their mind somewhere else. So like his leg doesn't work, but he's still like moving on it. You know what I mean? Like that shit is crazy. Like not all athletes can do that where they can be in so much pain physically, but they can just put their mind somewhere else and push past that pain. Whether it's MMA or any other type of sport too, we've seen, athletes get injured and push through pain. Guys play with injuries all the time. I'll always talk about it like Kobe Bryant stepping to the free throw line with a torn Achilles, where most dudes are getting carried out. Literally is just so mentally tough. Like I'm shooting these free throws before I leave. Like, I don't know if you remember that, Dan, but to me, it was just like one of the most mentally tough things ever where like most guys are getting carried out. That's that shit that you can't teach. You either have it or you don't. And most guys don't have it. It's like supreme, like 1% of athletes have it. And that's the one thing Yuri has.
that's like the
makes him
tragedy.
good.
That's the tragedy with Yuri is like he has these qualities that you can't teach. Like he's got the durability, he's got the mental toughness. Like it's the things that are teachable that he just like doesn't go to the places that can teach them to him. It's fucking infuriating. He would be unstoppable if he would just go to a real fucking gym and stop like training in the woods, kicking and punching trees and shit. Like,
I mean, how many times do you see an athlete who's got what looks like all the talent in the world, but like doesn't refine the talent, right?
That's
We
also
see it all the time.
When you've got like a lot of these guys, when they have like all these natural gifts, it's like they just will not go the extra mile, or it's like you can't tell them that there are holes in their game. It's a shame, man. I hope he goes down to middleweight because I think he would be I know he's talked about it. He ain't getting another title shot as long as Pereira holds the belt.
He probably will. He probably will.
He would be a problem at middleweight.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, until he finds someone who just, doesn't get fooled by his just come forward, I don't give it an F attitude and puts his lights out. But yeah.
Go to a real gym.
All right. Main two fights left on this card here. We got some bangers. Robert Whittaker versus Hamza Chimaev here. Chimaev sitting a -238 favorite on DraftKings. 8,700 for Chimaev. Whittaker sitting at 7,500. Dan, I already know your thoughts for DFS. You're jamming these 5-round fights. You want them all. So I get that. But which guy do you see winning this fight?
I'm picking Robert Whittaker straight up. I think, he's proven. I'm going to keep backing Robert Whittaker. Outside of the Duplessis fight, he's one of the best middleweights to ever fucking do it, man. The only guys he's lost to are current and former champions of the division. Hamzat, Hamzat early, is an absolute monster. He's a huge problem, but I think Whittaker has the skill and, the durability to weather the storm. And the later the fight gets, it turns advantage Whittaker because Hamzat, we've seen him in later rounds and he gets tired, man. Like his aggressive style, just like that's just going to happen. Like if you fight the way Hamzat fights, like you're going to get tired later. And I think Whittaker is, skilled enough, savvy enough, experienced enough to, again, weather that storm. And, these like round props sort of bear that out. It's like the early round props. You've got Hamzat round 1, plus 275, round 2, 500, 900, 1400. But then you go down to Whittaker and it's like, round 1, 800, 1,000. But then it kind of starts to turn where it's like round 4, they're even at plus both 1,400. Round 5, you've got Hamzat at plus 2,000 and Whittaker at, plus 1,800, which, these are like kind of subtle things, but at the same time, it's like when you come to your analysis with these things that you already sort of like know about these guys, and then the numbers are there to sort of like back it up. Like, I'm not going to ignore that. And I would rather back a fighter that I am more confident will find a way to win as the fight drags on. Because if Khamzat doesn't find the early finish, which again, like, he's an absolute animal early in the fight, and I think he could. So, like, obviously I'm going to be heavy on both sides here, but and Khamzat obviously too has like the much better scoring style for DraftKings. So I can't ignore that, even if I think Whittaker wins. This is gonna be an amazing fight. I can't wait for it. I don't know if you watched the weigh-in show, but Khamzat, like, he took it right down to the wire and did not weigh in until there was like 10 minutes left. I was sitting there
and he
like,
hopped right off the scale. Like,
I was sitting there at 3
a.m,
just like, oh my God, is he really gonna fucking do this right now? But like, luckily he made the weight. I swear to God, if this fight gets scratched after lock, I'm gonna throw my fucking TV through the window.
Yeah, you're gonna be pissed. Don't even talk about it, because it's not happening. So I like Bobby Whittaker. I think he's a really good fighter. I do think that if this fight goes into the later rounds, that he is going to have a chance. That's his chance right there. This fight goes, past that, second into that third, later in that third round, Chimaev will slow down 100%. But this dude in that first round against Usman was ragdolling Kamaru Usman. And I know his knees are shot. And Kamaru Usman is a beat. I think before that fight, Kamaru Usman only got taken down like one other time, or by one other person or something like that. Like, and Chimaev took him down easily, like instantly, easily. What's up?
Was that short notice or an opponent, or am I thinking of something else?
It might have been short notice. I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember, but he had him, Dan, he had him flattened out, and if you watched Usman the entire time, like, he was literally just like tucked his head, because he knew the choke was like one of the things he was looking for. So he was just kind of like tucking his head, just holding out hope that he could survive that round, with Chimaev just like on his back for almost 5 minutes straight. And that's the thing. Like, when you have a style like that, you're gonna get tired at some point. Like, maybe you can do that for a round or two, or even three, but that fourth and fifth round, it gets harder and harder. But I just think Chimaev is going to probably ragdoll Bobby Whittaker here. I get it. If you want to bet Bobby Whittaker, that's fine. I think submission at plus 240 is an interesting bet for Chimaev. I think he could find a sub. And I do think he is the better DFS play at 8,700. Like you said, I think he's, from an upside standpoint, he's got the upside, to just absolutely dominate. We saw Dricus du Plessis kind of run through Bobby Whittaker too. Kind of different style, but like similar, just like bully him almost. Yeah. And I think Chimaev is going to try and bully Robert Whittaker. Maybe it won't work. You know what I mean? Maybe Bobby Whittaker is, fixed a few things and stuff, but, Ikram Aliskerov and Chimaev are two different animals. I'll just tell you that they're very different.
I do also just want to say though, like, a big concern. I have like concerns about Chimaev, and I mean, like, I think these are well known, like his health. He did make the weight, which is awesome, but it's like, this guy has been battling like chronic illness, and a lot of people are saying, it's long COVID, shit like that. So
they said he like throws up before fights and shit like that, right?
I love that. And also, I mean, every time Khamzat comes up, I tell people, like, go watch him in his fight against Gilbert Burns, because it's one of the most entertaining fights you'll ever see. Just like pure fucking violence. It's awesome. But in that fight, he got outstruck by Gilbert Burns, who is like not exactly known for his striking. So that to me is like a major red flag. And I think, again, if Whittaker can weather the early storm and can keep this on the feet, like, I think he's got Chimaev covered there pretty handedly.
All right, there we go. There's Whittaker and Chimaev. We're split there. Good fight. Let's go to the main fight on the card. Ilia Topuria sitting a -250 favorite versus Max Holloway here, plus 205 on DraftKings, 7,400 for Holloway. Topuria sitting 8,800 for DFS. Dan, I this is a lock fight. I get it. But this is going to be a banger. I think this is going to be a fun fight. I think it's interesting that Ilia was talking about how he's going to walk right up to the middle of the cage when this fight starts and point to the ground with Holloway. First of all, do you believe that shit's going to happen?
I mean, he seems like a fucking bonehead. So I do believe, and honestly, like, he knows that that's his best chance, right? Against Max, like, or, you know, is knocking him out, because I think in a straight up, like, striking battle at distance, like, Max is gonna fucking brutalize him. Like, Max is the best striker to ever be in the UFC. You know, his pace, his skill, the pace, volume, skill, like, it's all there. You know, his last fight, his last time out against Gaethje, the whole talk was, oh, he's going up to 140, 155. How is he going to handle Gaethje? He fucking handled Gaethje, dude. Like, and then he, you know, knockout of the year with 1 second left, which, you know, obviously either one of them could have landed in that exchange, but Max was the one who landed. I don't think he's going to knock Topuria out necessarily. I think, you know, most likely if he wins, it's going to be by decision, but I also like hitting late round props on Max. Like, those have been getting steamed. He was like plus, you know, I think at minimum, like starting in round 3, he was like plus 2,000. Those have now come down to, you know, round 3, 1,500, 1,600, 1,600 for 4 and 5. So, you know, the market is seeing the same thing. I just think, you know, obviously Topuria has insane power in his hands. But man, I'm going to go to the resumes here. Like, Max is a legend. He's fought everybody. He's fought, you know, and the only person who's been able to like consistently best him and give him problems is Volkanovski, which Topuria, if you want to do MMA math, yeah, Topuria knocked Volk out. He made it look relatively easy, but that's probably the worst version of Volk that we've ever seen, like, since his title run.
And on top of that, Ilia was just looking for the knockout shot. Like, he's like, you know, what if you don't find, I get it, it's 5 rounds too, so the likelihood is he thinks he'll find it, but I think he's going to do the same thing against Max. So if we're going round by round, I think Max is going to win some of these rounds on volume.
Yep. Yeah, Max is definitely the better round winner here. I mean, you know, just to go back to Rhett, like, what Topuria's best win is, like, obviously Volk, which, you know, and this isn't disrespect to Volk at all, obviously, but you know, again, the worst version of Volk we've ever seen, like, just a few months removed off of like a brutal knockout loss in a fight that he also probably shouldn't have even taken. Like, I think, you know, a lot of bad decision making by Volkanovski leading up to that fight. So I do take that win with a grain of salt. And then, you know, his best win previous to that, you know, Josh Emmett, who we love Josh Emmett, but, you know, obviously not on Holloway's level. Bryce Mitchell, who, you know, not anywhere near fucking who got, you know, almost murdered by Josh Emmett. And then, you know, the fight before that against Jai Herbert, like, Jai Herbert had Topuria like doing the fucking stanky leg with a goddamn leg kick. He ended up winning the fight, but we've never seen Max Holloway in trouble like that ever against anyone. Like, Max has never so much as been knocked down, let alone knocked out. So,
well, Gaethje had him. I know they didn't record it as a knockdown, but that was pretty. That was borderline right there. That was close.
He got right back up. That wasn't a knockdown.
Okay, I'm just saying he had him hurt for a second, like he did.
I just think this line is insane and insanely disrespectful. I think, like, the Ilia hype train is out of control. The Ilia Glazers are out of fucking control. I'm definitely letting my bias show through here. Like, I am a massive Max Holloway fan. He's probably my favorite fighter of all time. So, you know, keep that in mind when you're listening to me talk about him. But Man, I've got Holloway all fucking day here. I think 2-1 Max Holloway. Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, and we were all over him against Gaethje,
Yep.
you know, in that line, which I thought was disrespectful to Max. And yeah,
Max.
this feels. I mean, I think that was a little worse, obviously, but this feels still pretty disrespectful to Max. Now, if you ask me who has more finishing upside, if like I think Ilya, if you made me say
Yep.
which guy finishes the fight, it's probably on the Ilya side. Now, if you said which guy wins a decision, I think if it goes to decisions, probably more on the Max side. Because, like I said, I think the volume is probably on the Max side. Now, unless Ilya wrestles,
No one
which
can out volume Max. No one can out
no
volume.
one.
No one.
Now, if Ilya wrestles and has success wrestling, maybe then he can win some rounds that way. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do that for a long period of time against Max.
I mean, Max is rocking a 84% takedown defense. And again, just like look at the resume, man. He's fought, you know, for the last however many years it is, he's just been fighting nothing but the absolute best of the division. And the only people that have been able to best him in recent times is Volkanovski. Like Volk is obviously just you know, just a bad matchup. And I think like his size and stature has a little bit to do with that. I just don't.
I think the style too, because when you don't have that put out power, you know, like natural, it's just volume kind of thing. Like Volk's gonna give you problems. Like you know, Volk's gonna give any like what Ilya did to Volk is like how you like that's how you gotta be. You gotta put him out pretty much.
Yeah.
Like if
Max doesn't really have that one shot power.
No, I know he did it where he like pointed to the ground and but listen, like he's not doing that in every fight. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how he would have to do it, I think. And he just, you know, you can't do that every fight. Like it's just you're gonna get knocked out at some point if you just start going to the middle of the cage and fucking, you know, Max is the BMF champion. You know, I get it. He's a badass and all that stuff, but he's not dumb as fuck either. You know what I mean? Like,
Ilya is trying to play on, you know, he talking all this shit like, oh, I'm going to point to the center of the ring. And if he wants to like not be a coward, he'll come in, blah, blah, blah. Like Max isn't going to fucking fall for that, dude.
No, you know what Ilya is? I really believe this too. I think he's jealous. He's jealous because Max Holloway got all that buzz from what he did, you know, on that, you know, show and he wants that. He wants to be that guy. He wants to be the baddest motherfucker on the planet who pointed to the ground and did it in one in cool fashion that way. So he wants to say he did it. Yeah, you're trying to be someone you're not. Just be yourself. You know what I mean? It's so fake. It drives me nuts.
He did not want this fight. He didn't want to fight Max. He was like, you know, when it first started coming up, he's like, oh, like I'm not gonna fight him. He doesn't want to fight Volk again. Like, you know, I heard this elsewhere. I don't remember where, but it's like, you know, Max is the type of guy who's like, I will fight anyone. Bring me fucking anyone. I want.
He's not afraid of any fighter.
Ilya's like, oh no, I don't want to fight this guy. Oh, this is so and so doesn't, you know, all this bullshit. Like, I'm definitely letting my bias fucking come through right now. I know.
I don't like Ilya either, so I'm with you. I just don't like the way he acts. I don't like anything about Ilya Topuria.
Dude, I had a fucking nightmare last night that fucking Ilya knocked Max out round 1. I woke up in a cold, so I was like, what the fuck? I was like,
yeah, that'll not be good for my wallet if Ilya just goes out there and
that won't be good for my psyche. That'll just be bad for my mental health. Like, you know, so I'm obviously like a big like Philly sports fan. So.
I hope he goes out there and tries to wrestle right off. Like he shoots instantly. Like I want to just see that so bad, just so I can. That's the type of person you actually are, Topuria. Exactly who you are. So,
but it's like, dude, like the Phillies getting knocked out of the playoffs by the Mets was like not good for me. You know. It was bad times, but like right after that happened, I was like, well, as long as Max beats Ilya, I'm fucking fine.
Like, yeah, you're good. You're good.
Max losing will hurt me much more.
All right, there you go. There's Topuria, Holloway. Me and Dan both on the Holloway side. for DFS. Definitely a slam fight. Like, just slam that
Oh,
fight. Whoever you're in on, if it's Topuria, slam Topuria at 8,800. You're looking for that finish or volume of 5 rounds of war
I'll
or
probably be
wrestling.
I'll probably be like around 60-40, but leaning to the max side purely for the
Yeah.
fact that, like, if no other dogs in his range win, Max, if he loses like a later round knockout, like his volume and pace, like he could potentially be in the winner with a loss, and Ilya could find himself outside of the winner if he's just getting like a late round knockout. Like, just to throw that out there. But I also think Max wins, so for that reason I'll also be heavier on Max. But yeah, slam this fight. Don't even fucking think twice about it.
Bam. All right. Those are all the fights on the card. Dan, favorite bet on the card before we get out of here?
Max Holloway.
Bang. I will not give Max Holloway because I don't want to give the same bet. I'll go with my Armenian brother, Armin Petrosyan. There we go. 2 dogs for you guys to have some fun with there. Good luck to everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed the UFC 308 card starting early, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll have the content up over at Run Pure Sports RPS 15. If you don't want to join, that's okay too. Just hit that like button on the free show. Subscribe to the Run Pure Sports channel. I'll be back in a few minutes for the NFL Print Factory show. So until then, for Dan and myself, JSU, we'll see you guys next week. We're out. Peace.